During my final year in school, I turned the student council into a dictatorship. What evil plots have you successfully hatched? A couple of weeks ago at Girl State, a summer camp where you live in a city and simulate Congress and court systems etc., I ran for Superior Court judge and lost. So the next step was to start a mafia. Along with that, there was an underground drug cartel. My buddy and I stole money, hired hitmen, and circulated drugs under the noses of officials. We actually got the city mayor, a senator and the county sheriff to back us up. And it somehow raised our city value. Edit. I made people call me the godmother. In 8th grade, a teacher who I intensely disliked ran the Model UN club. She thought that I, being a good and well-spoken student, should join the club. When I declined the offer, she emailed my parents to tell them about it, and they insisted that I at least try it out. Long story short, I ended up going to one of the conferences, representing the country of Hungary in one of the sub-councils that relates to the welfare of people in the country. However, I went with a very specific plan. Essentially, through some clever manipulation and word changing, I got my entire council to vote for a resolution creating internment camps for gypsies in all European countries. It was my senior year in high school, and I had taken a blow-off math class. I walk in on day 1 and notice that my seat was right next to a countertop that held plants. Behind the plants sat an electrical outlet. The next day, I brought in an old toaster and a friend brought frozen waffles. The toaster was very old, as in the brave little toaster's brother. Nice and shiny aluminum. We hid the toaster behind the plants and made everything we could for 3 weeks. Waffles, Pop-Tarts, toaster strudels, toast, and even some garlic toast slices. This went on 4 weeks with everyone except for 3 people in the room absolutely clueless as to why period 2 smelled delicious. On the last day, we brought bread, cheese, and crab meat along with the George Foreman grill. I made as many deluxe grilled cheeses as I could until the teacher came by and heard the sizzling. I looked up with my greasy spatula and just calmly said, "What?" Double quote. I was halfway through the second loaf of bread. TLDR. I secretly cooked things in my math class for almost a month. This happened 2 years ago. When I was in grade 10. My school has a bring your own banana week where if you brought banana, you would get a free banana sundae. Though you could also buy one for $2. Being the business savvy young man that I am, I purchased several bunches of bananas for about $3 per bunch. Come Monday at lunch I started telling a few people that I could sell them a banana for $1 so they could get their sundae for half the price. They told their friends and so on until come Wednesday I had a fully established banana dealing operation. I ended up making about $85 in profit. Though the experience was priceless, I lasted the entire week before I was shut down. The VP walked up and did the whole "what are you up to here, son?" bit. He ended up giving me a 2-day suspension. It started out being 1 day, though he didn't take kindly to me jokingly offering him the rest of the bananas to let me off the hook. So fast forward to Monday. I was sitting at home due to my suspension when I start getting texts from my friends. I kid you not. The announcements that morning said from this day forth the sale of bananas on school property is strictly prohibited. I have to say, it felt pretty awesome. TLDR, I made selling bananas at my high school a prohibited act and was suspended for it. This was in Canada, in case anyone is wondering. I played bass in the school orchestra for many years. It was always boring. The bass parts were very simple and easy. So, senior year, I decided to have a little fun with it. I would gradually increase the tempo, and, through a sort of ripple effect, everyone in the orchestra would speed up. Our teacher would get all upset, and the violins could never keep up. It was glorious. During my final year of high school I created an online yearbook anonymously to undermine the shitty official school yearbook. The idea was that people could write honestly about what they actually got up to in their high school years, without worrying about being censored or getting pulled up by the school for shit that they had caused. There was also a voting section where people could anonymously vote for things like who they thought was most likely to be prime minister, have an unplanned pregnancy, etc. Access was limited to registered members, and the entire site was built by me from the ground up. So were the terms and conditions that people read when they signed up. Terms and conditions that gave me as the site's admin unlimited access to their voting information and registration info. It's not really surprising what people say about their friends when they think that they can hide behind anonymity. The best part though? I also discovered that people also often use their Facebook passwords for any official looking registration page without thinking twice. TLDR. High school senior executes plan to become evil bastard child of Mark Zuckerberg and Anonymous. I did something a little milder at my college. The then actual president of the student council needed to reform the constitution. But in my case it has to pass the legal department and the head of administration council, public university So, in order to get it passed he needed a really well dictated constitution and a fairly strong argument. Since I'm a law student, it was kinda easy for me. Anyways, to keep it short, I amended the text. He proposed it as his own. The text added a new member who ended up voting me in as the new president, since he couldn't be re-elected and because he was of course a friend of ours, and when I became president, I ditched him and asked the ex-president to maintain this position. As previously planned. This way, we both managed to stay in the student council. To be fair, I ended up voting the ditched guy in as the head student of our faculty, law. So he ended up pretty well. 2. Politics in university may seem kinda irrelevant, but it can be some serious shit with huge egos and personalities. Anyway, thanks to this, I ended meeting the chief of Supreme Court of my country, as well as many other high profile politicians. It's a thing that if you are into it and have a little skill, could be very worthwhile. I even worked with anti-terrorism intelligence agents once. Sophomore year in high school. 1997. I started a small investors club. By junior year 1998, my club had over 50 members. I went to a huge school. I told everyone to invest in the school event fund for dances, retreats, etc. So a few weeks after that, the fund grew to $5,000 from all the investing, charities, and fundraisers. In senior year 1999, I took the $5,000 and told everyone to raise it to $15,000 for the Millennium Party 2000. By November 1999 we had $15,000 in the school's fund which I had unlimited access to because my friend was the president of the StuGov Club. On the 5th of January 2000 I took the $15,000, invested it into a stock company, and got away with $32,000 of the investors club money. I left the school by choice in February. When asked about the missing money, I told the school board that the principal had been involved in a drug trade and got 10 of my friends to vouch for me. TDL. I took $30,000 from the investors club for myself and no one found out. I do student congress debate at my school. This was my first year. And on my third competition, I managed to get 2 alliances pitted against each other, with me at the head of both. Funneling votes. I got my 2 friends and said, hey, I really wanna do well. Wanna start an alliance? They agreed. And I told one to tell other people to start an alliance, and the other friend to ask the others in our chamber group of people debating. They each got around 4 or 5 people. And I had mostly everyone in my chamber on 2 conflicting alliances. I then sent the order down that the person who started the alliance was putting their bills up for all of the domestic issues. All 3 passed near unanimously. The people who had negating arguments did present them. But when it came to the vote they voted for me. Close bracket. I did Lincoln Douglas debate at my school, which is a moral ethical debate, while talking to my competitors in the hall outside of our room. waiting for a judge to arrive so we could begin. I noticed that they all tended to brag about how good at debate they were. So at the state qualifying tournament I kept talking to everybody about how terrible I was. It worked. I won 3 times in a row and made it to finals. Nearly made it to state. Pretty damn good for a novice if you ask me. In a senior literature class in high school. The teacher, pretty awesome woman. Although I disapprove of her literature taste, told us to write a creative piece based on the themes of a book. And possibly present it. It was breath, eyes, memory. Some themes were rape, trauma, insanity, etc. So I decided write porn. Hardcore explicit lesbian porn. Ending in the rapist committing suicide in front of the victim. Then some friends and I acted the whole story out in front of the class. I just thought, well, I'm going into engineering. So why not actually have fun during this literature class? The teacher later told me she had to read my story bit by bit. Not in one sitting because she was traumatized. To be fair, she was quite a rainbows and butterflies kind of woman. I used to have a thorough command of Robert's Rules of Order. In college, I got myself appointed student government parliamentarian. From then on, with the help of 2 other people, I ran the organization. People had to vote no if they were in favor of things and all sorts of other goodies. I literally was the only person who knew what was going on. People kept poring over the minutes and could not figure out how their propositions got defeated. It was all legal. My class went to Islands of Adventure last year, and while getting in line for the Harry Potter ride an employee made a remark about muggles. So naturally I turned around and said, "We are not muggles. We come from the North American School of Wizardry and Witchcraft. NASWAR for short." It was funny for about 5 minutes. When we got on the bus back to school, someone started talking about it and I had to explain it over and over again. Flash forward to Monday, and by that point my whole program, for smart people at a super ghetto school, was in on it. It soon turned into a sort of Hogwarts-like thing and people had what house they were in, classes they took, professors, yada yada yada. I involuntarily became the headmaster and the rest of my IOA group the professors. By this point the whole school, about 500 7th and 8th graders, was in on it. People I didn't even know were talking about and enrolled in a pretend school I made up as a joke. Eventually, it got really bad and arguments and minor fights broke out. A couple of friendships were temporarily ended because of it. I never really cared much and messed with people who got really into it by awarding and taking away points to their houses. I found it all really funny. This lasted about half a semester before the teachers ended it. TLDR made up a Hogwarts-esque school as a joke and it swept through my school causing chaos among my peers. In 8th grade I ran for president. But the day I was supposed to give my speech, the principal realized I had had a detention so I was not legible to run for president. Later I told my basketball team and they told the whole school to vote for me, by write-in votes. I ended up winning but the head of student council was really pissed and ripped up all my votes. When I saw this topic I got excited because I thought we would have something in common. But what I read instead is what I would expect to be a plot from a Disney Channel show. Here is how a real president runs his student council. Serving as president for 3 years after transferring into the school the sophomore year. Being the only name on the student council back account holding $25,000. Taking control of all vending operations. Both drink and food. For the entire school and carrying the keys to the machines with you. Note, it is shockingly easy to get re-elected if you give out free Mountain Dew. Close bracket. Getting school administrator to resign before a vote to fire him took place. Trust me. He needed to go. Taking school funds to hold student council meetings at restaurants and movie theaters. Requesting and receiving keys to the building that opened all doors. And a security code to deactivate the alarm. I had real power. Not the power that you get by handwriting a constitution on an A4 sheet of paper and making references to Fight Club on it. P.S. I took a free enterprise course my senior year in high school where we played a business running game. The premise behind it was that 28 of us were split into 7 teams of 4 people. And each team ran a corporation that would sell stock goods at your own price. There were fees to be paid each week based on employees, upgrading facilities, machineware, R&D, which made your goods better, etc. The first thing I did was conspire with a few other groups to arbitrarily set the pricing, and for the first few weeks, I spent all of our income on upgrading our existing facilities to produce massive amounts of goods. Around Christmas, I broke the cartel pricing and dropped the price around 50%. Because of our huge infrastructure, we were able to sell the goods very cheap and still maintain large profits. The other groups, however, had simply coasted along with profits, and when hit with the pricing change, couldn't keep up. We drove the entire class to bankruptcy in a little over a month. So for the final semester of high school we were the only remaining functioning corporation. Monopolies are fantastic. I rarely post gaming stories on here, but this one fits. I was playing one of those roller coaster tycoon theme park tycoon games. Don't remember which one specifically. I was more interested in killing people on roller coasters than actually setting up my park to make money, which proved to be a problem. So throughout the park I built French fry stands next to soda stands. The fries were free but had the salt set to maximum. The soda stand had ice and price maxed. I made a killing to fund my killing. Damn it, OP. You aren't supposed to blow it out of the water for everyone else. At my last school, I never got caught for anything. Although I deserved to get caught for so much. I never did anything bad personally. I just orchestrated everything. Everybody knew it, but nobody could prove it. Deleting texts, emails, calls, everything. Making sure people knew damn well if they got caught they didn't know me. At first it was just petty shit. Hey, go get me, phone. Go tell that guy to keep away from me. That kind of stuff. It escalated a lot further than it ever should have. I ended up with bodyguards. I had a mole in every room. People were making me money by stealing small stuff and selling it, giving me 60% of the proceeds. Eventually, people noticed that something was up with me and all these guys I had following me. People tried to do it themselves. Only one succeeded. A guy who we'll call Michael. He clearly followed in my footsteps. Now, I needed even more. I needed spies. People on the inside. I found out that they were meeting at 5 PM after school in the gym, planning their moves. I needed to destroy the competition. Informing all of my people. We started the attack halfway through their meeting. No weapons. Just a brawl. I stood back and watched the carnage unfold. In this large room regularly reserved for basketball players at this hour. As I left that room, something hit me. I was the head of a F-King gang. TLDR orchestrated a gang fight. For the past 10 months I have been steadily moving furniture in my apartment. An inch or two at a time. Just to screw with my girlfriend. When she comes in some days, she goes to drop her keys on the coffee table and they hit the floor instead. Or she'll try to sit on the couch and stumble and catch herself. I think I have her convinced she's having some kind of inner ear problem. And that's why she always feels vaguely disoriented. When the next semester starts, I'm going to go into her buildings before her classes and slightly move furniture there. 2. My grandfather taught high school history. And my father had somewhat unique opportunity of being in his dad's class his junior year of high school. Similar to another post in this thread, they also had a year-long simulation. Students were divided into small groups, nations, and had to interact with one another. Economics, foreign relations, etc. Those who did poorly, their nations failing to thrive, would receive an F. This was about 40 years ago, mind you, and have to write an additional essay to have any hope of getting an A in the class. Basically my dad broke the simulation. Internally, he allowed all of his imaginary citizens to starve, ran his economy into the ground, poured it all into his military, and nuked half the class in the first week. He held the remaining nations hostage for a combination of in-simulation goods and services. And real-world cookies and whatnot. While this didn't make him particularly popular with his, now failing, classmates. And though my grandpa pretends to be pissed when he tells this story, I think he was secretly proud. TLDR, Dad went North Korean in world history simulation. Junior in college. I never really understood why people sold their books to the bookstore or other students. So, halfway through my freshman year, I began renting them out at fares lower than bookstore prices. Since I was getting them back at semester's end, I knew that I could just roll over the profits for more books, since other people would be selling their used books around that same time. Next semester, I buy $400 worth of used math books, new edition. Only been used one semester. And would need to be used by most all freshmen in the coming years. Totaled to be 22 books. I rent them all out to people for $40 semester. The semester ends. I claim about $800. Repeat process. I now have amassed 70 plus math books. And about 30 other various subjects for other majors. Already have shipped them out. And brought in about $3,500 for this semester. And in December will repeat the process. To be safe. In May, I will be selling all of the math books back to the bookstore. Since a new edition will likely be coming out in 2014. And I can still make about a final $40 to $50 book in this way. For a fail-safe profit. TLDR, I exploit the monetary ignorance of my peers. God bless America. I had a teacher in high school who, every Friday, challenged the class to a bout of Trivial Pursuit. Someone could volunteer to answer the question. Wager up to 5% of their grade. If the student answered it correctly, they had that amount added to their final grade. If they didn't, they'd lose that percentage. I snagged one of the cards, wrote down the date, and tracked down the same ancient Trivial Pursuit set on eBay and proceeded to memorize every card. By the end of the term I had a grade of 158% and my best friend, who I fed answers to, was the closest student and he had 145%. The kicker of the story, and the most evil part, is that this teacher graded on a curve. TLDR cheated. Set the curve in a class at 158%. Half the class got C's and D's. I used to douche tea like this in Model United Nations all the time. It helped that I did many of them in Brazil where I was a first language speaker. My favorite position would to take a middle-level country such as South Korea or Canada and angle them into positions where they were leading a cabal of third world nations with the intent of taking over the first world. I would abuse my relations with the first world countries, and in perhaps my most successful coup I convinced the U.S. to invade the Netherlands, saying that me and several other nations would back them. As soon as they did, we turned on the U.S. and proceeded to invade them through Canada. I think it was at this point that the teachers stepped in. When I was around 12 or 13, I was sitting at the kitchen table eating McDonald's with my younger sister. I realized I needed ketchup for my fries. But I really didn't want to get up to get it. So I hatched an evil plan. It went pretty much like this. Me. Oh, I wish we had ketchup. Sister. We do. Me. No, we don't. Sister. Getting angry now. Yes, we do. It went on like this for a little while. Until she got so frustrated she stormed over to the fridge, grabbed the ketchup, and slammed it down in front of me. She still gets mad when I bring it up. Muahaha. We did something in HS that involved our student council. We were supposed to look at winter formal locations in a week. But the president and I, the treasurer, liked this one place we had seen. We brought 2 other members to look at it. Took pictures and showed it to the entire council. I wrote the check for the down payment. Our advising teacher needed to approve of the place. But she hadn't even seen it. She said she wanted us to go ahead and look at all the places to make sure which venue we wanted. Well, despite what she wanted and had decided, we all voted against her and chose the place we had written the check for a week before. Since, you know, we already wrote the check. You are quite the sly politician. With an iron fist. In my schools the student council never had enough power to do anything really serious. Host fundraisers. Plan events. Etc. Not sure if that's the case at all schools. But I think people only ever cared about it because they could put it on their college applications. A friend of mine did tell me a similar story once about the school band. Every spring the members vote on next year's band leadership. And he was competing with another member for the position of head conductor. And these two did not like each other. So he did some wheeling and dealing. He leveraged his popularity with the other members to convince another member running for president to make him head conductor and keep the other guy out of all major positions. It worked, and I was in our dorm room when the loser came by for them to discuss some band issues. The silent tension between the two was intense. But they maintained their professionalism the whole time. Till the other guy left the room. Oh, band's nerd politics. Sophomore year of high school. My AP US history class played an altered version of the pre-World War I game Diplomacy. Basically, each team of 3 was a different country. And you had to negotiate treaties with the other countries to best set yourself up for the eventual war. My country was Russia. And we played dirty. We successfully negotiated deals with every other country that appeared to be significantly in their favor. 40/60 land splits. Non-aggression pacts. etc. For organizational purposes we had a separate sheet where both parties signed and agreed to the treaty. Fortunately, none of the other foreign ambassadors noticed the difference between the Russia and Germany treaty and Russian-German treaty. The treaties they actually agreed to were concessions of all land, food, and freedom. We also required all French women moved to Russia, and took all the pretzels and streusel from Germany. Among other things. It was awesome. And the bonus point was definitely worth all the hate I got. I didn't partake in this personally. But during my college years we had a Greek council which oversaw the fraternities and sororities on campus. And basically made our partying lives more difficult. I was a member and president of my brotherhood. The council consisted of students who were typically RAs, goodies, and was led by several college staff, who definitely complicated matters and played favorites among the groups. My group was one of the ones which were notorious due to past shenanigans, including national attention back in 2004. But due to half of the campus being named after alums of ours, our charter was relatively safe. We just had to deal with the minor harassment from these staff leaders. During my senior year, the council was essentially infiltrated by excellent friends of mine from like-minded groups. And once enough power was held, they voted to disband the council. All of a sudden, the groups had freedom again, without having to submit every little detail of our schedules for approval. And the staff members who had made our lives hell literally had no job to do. I think we might have actually ended up saving the college some money through this, as those positions were completely unnecessary in the first place. TLDR. Council was infiltrated and voted for its own dissolution. I must say, it was a pretty awesome senior year. Our high school economics class had an investing simulation in which we were given a few $1,000s and we were to invest the money in different companies at whatever the price was listed at in the WSJ that day. We were free to buy and sell once a day with fees and such to make it a simulation. Some days were vacation days and test days with no trading, or the number could have gotten really high. Every other group picked their favorite companies, used recommendations from publications, etc. Our group quietly exploited the inability of the market to respond to our simulated buying and selling. We looked at penny stocks with a tendency to fluctuate by doubling in value from day to day. We proceeded to turn the few thousand we started with into about $100. 000. The teacher was going to auction off candy, but we could buy about everything 100x over, so he just gave us a bunch of bags of mini size and a king size of something for each. We only got to keep them if we could explain why what we did would not work. On the opposite side actually, I became the embodiment of good in my high school world studies course. We were reenacting the caste system of India, money granted with an economic system and all in place. and I was chosen to be a part of the upper caste. I decided to become Gandhi and take all of my wealth and material possessions and bring them to the lowest caste. I declared my actions to the teacher, got up from my table with the upper caste, and brought all of my raw materials and such to the other side of the room where the untouchables sat. The teacher wasn't thrilled that I was messing up her example of the caste system, but I called her a British oppressor and went through with it anyway. In year 7, we set up a fake town at school. It was pretty similar to what others have described here, where you purchase your desk and can buy others, etc. You also had various jobs. I was the IT guy who kept a never-ending stream of problems going with the computer that needed my expertise to fix at a higher rate than I was supposed to get. You could also start a business. Anyway, this was a slow way of making money, so my friend and I photocopied the money. Somehow the teacher never caught on. By the end of the semester, my friend and I owned every desk, except the ones we sat at, because people stubbornly refused to sell their last classly possession to us. We also ran a side black market business selling fake class money for real Australian dollars. We were gods. Edit. I should point out, the IT guy was the second lowest paid job in the class, netting something like 90 a week, versus the class mayor who got 450. So the fact I was one of the 2 richest in the class made no sense. Every year, my elementary school would hold a big fair day to raise money. It had all sorts of game booths, competitions, and a bake sale. It was great. There were 2 booths that I was particularly interested in: the toy booth and the Lucky Dip booth. Both sold toys that had been donated. You could browse the toy booth, just like a shop. Each item had its price. The Lucky Dip booth had a large bin full of toys wrapped in newspaper. You paid 50 cents and picked a package. You never knew what you would get. My parents weren't the richest, but I would always get $5 to spend. I would head straight for the toy booth and Lucky Dip booths, get some choice toys, and sell them to other kids for more. The best day I had. I ended up making $20. Similar, but never implemented. I worked as a chairman of Board of Elections of Student Union. We are responsible for counting the votes and regulating and writing election rules. Since SU was so lazy and didn't do anything, we decided to throw the democracy away and just make members of Board of Elections the electors for presidency of SU. This rule would be kept secret and the so-called election from the people would only considered as advisement to Bo. Sadly, a teacher caught us to it and it got scrapped equals. My school used to have a photography class with a huge dark room. Past few years, they just used the room for storing random crap. It was completely out of the way and blocked off by massive doors. The AV room was filled with unused TVs, so I just grabbed one and had my friend help me haul it into the dark room, which I dubbed the Batcave. It was my senior year, and I had things more or less on cruise control. So over the course of the year I wired in the school's cable, giving me dozens of channels, and brought in a multitude of gaming consoles, a mini fridge, and a DVD player. I'd just skip class and relax there most of the day with other friends dropping in and out throughout the day to play Super Smash Bros. Or order pizza and watch TV. Nobody beyond my friends ever knew about it. Not even the teachers. TLDR. Put a TV in an abandoned dark room at school. Came to school every day to play video games. I had grown annoyed with a peer who always claimed to be a massive fan of whatever band my friends and I had talked about the day before. We managed to convince him that Nautica was a pirate metal band based in Florida that was doing a reunion tour. They lasted 1987 to 1990s, up the eastern seaboard. Some highlights include him claiming that he didn't know song titles because he just listened to them on YouTube, as well as asking for tickets to their gig. There were a few days where quite a few people I was only minimally acquainted with went up to him and told him about their undying love for Nautica. One of our teachers even informed the kid that he liked Nautica. Eventually though we told him, he vowed to kill us and feed a select few to various people. TLDR convinced a kid that Nautica was a metal band. Will probably get buried. And it's not that evil anyway. But last year during the Model United Nations Assembly my school was representing Syria and one of the remits was discussing what to do with the illegal immigrants flooding from North Africa into Europe. After very careful wording and support from North Korea and Israel, we submitted an idea that was essentially putting the immigrants in concentration camps. It passed. Israel, a Jewish nation, put concentration camps in Europe. It was a fun day. I hope someone sees this. Although it's not that evil. During my senior year, I would get a lot of rides from my friends. Well, I thought it would be funny to convince someone their car was being tracked. I took an old FRS radio and gutted it. Taped an older battery to it and tada! Fake GPS tracker. I popped it into my buddy's trunk when getting my bag out one day. Unfortunately, he never really took note of it. Coincidentally though, I kept bumping into him while driving around town, not literally. I'm a good driver. He did notice this and he even joked I must be tracking his car. To which I just smiled. This group of friends consists of insane geeks with no girlfriends to take up time. So anything is possible in his mind. He believes I am tracking his car and proceeds to search his car. He doesn't find the thing despite it laying openly in the trunk. But I know he'll see it soon. So I put it under the fabric where the spare tire is when he isn't looking one day. Then, I pass him on the road in the most incompressible way ever. We left somewhere at the exact same time. I took a scenic route home because it's a nice day. And we somehow meet face to face at an intersection. I play it up and give him a pew pew with a gun hand as I drive by. This coincidence convinced him fully. A few days later, sitting at lunch, he walks up with a straight face, slams the tracker down on the table and then has an expression I can only describe as I f-king win. Double quote. Me and a friend had a little tradition of sorts back at school. There was this big antenna on the highest roof of our school. You could get up there by climbing up onto the roof right by the teacher's lounge and then making your way over a couple more buildings. Catwalks and ventilation ducts. Upon reaching that promised roof we would drink a bottle of liquor and stick the bottle upside down on the antenna for the whole school populace to see. The roof was well visible from the courtyard. The bottle would usually stay up there for weeks until the janitor took it down. Which just meant another night of climbing and drinking for us. Fast forward a few years. When passing my old school, I look up and see a bottle on that antenna. Feels good, man. TLDR. Instituted a school tradition of sticking an empty liquor bottle on the antenna of the highest school building. In high school a kid dared me to smash a window with a stick. A Marty McFly reaction occurred in me when he started calling me a chicken. So I did it. Not one of my prouder moments. Turns out karma kicked in because the kid had actually set me up and ran off to dob on me. I realized as he ran off that he had left his bag behind. We didn't have lockers at my school. And I noticed that he had a football sticking out of it. I grabbed the football, which conveniently had his name on it, and threw it through the broken window and got rid of the stick I'd used to break it in the first place. When he returned with a teacher I told them my version of the story, which consisted of the other kid breaking the window with his ball. Of course the ball was in the classroom and that didn't help his case. Long story short, he got suspended for not only breaking a window, but for also lying. I got in no trouble at all. In History 12 we had to make fascist speeches to the class. Then after the whole class would vote on who they thought won. A couple kids brought in extra ballots. The ballots were ripped up paper. And they had the highest number of votes because of that. The teacher announced their victory. But then I yelled stop. And stood up. I walked over and told her I would butcher her family if she ever claimed that anyone aside from myself is the dictator. I then erased everyone's votes from the whiteboard, gave myself an obscene amount and wrote that it was decreed that I was the eternal god King Caesar Khan. I sat back down, telling the teacher that she may continue. She, along with the rest of the class, was stunned. She then said, "Well, I guess that's that then." He won. And congratulated me on my landslide victory. The class protested. But the teacher reminded them there were no rules. and that I had embodied a fascist takeover quite well. Did anyone do Exchange City? You essentially made fake businesses in this little fake city and some building for a day. Most of the monetary exchanges were done through checks. It was 6th grade, so no one even thought of faking them. Except for me apparently. I was our accountant, so I tripled all of our profits. And wrote myself massive checks to buy a shitload of snacks at the snack shop, which sold popcorn and candy. Brilliant. They also had a charity box where kids could donate the money they earned, and some business would donate a portion of actual money for every dollar we put in. I think I ruined it when I donated several $1,000,000. Back in grade 6, our teacher initiated a program where we would be given fake dollars based on our performance in the class. Doing well on a test, doing chores such as cleaning the board, getting to class on time, etc. would grant you some dollars. Misbehaving in the classrooms, bothering other kids, etc. would cause you to lose some dollars. About a quarter of the guys in the class, including myself, decided to come up with a plan. We scanned a dollar bill to the computer and copy-pasted the bill on Paint Microsoft Word many times, similar to how many dollar bills are actually printed. We printed pages of these out and distributed the money amongst the guys. In order to launder this money into the class economy, we did moves such as asking people to do some questions from our homework and paying them the laundered money. Another thing was we'd trade bills, such as trading a fake $50 bill for 2 real $25 dollar bills. This went on for a couple of weeks until one of the other guys in the class found out and ratted us all out to the teacher. Upon finding out, the teacher decided to find out who was at the bottom of all this and proceeded to create a pyramid structure of hierarchy and ranked us all based on questions he asked us in order to find out the leader of the operation. Overall, the economy of the class was ruined with all this fake money, and the experiment ended due to our laundering. While it was a bit cruel of us to do so, I think it showed how even in fake systems, people will find a way to cheat it to serve their own benefit. Back in JHS, I was widely known as the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh card dealer in the school. I had a huge binder with card sleeves and many cards in them, ranging from common to rare holo foil cards. Of course, the prices varied with each card. Fast forward a couple days, I realized that eventually I was going to run out of cards, and my money income was going to come to an end. I thought to myself, how can I keep making money with these cards? Then it dawned on me. I gathered about 4 boys that I knew and told them straightforward that I wanted them to steal back every card that I sold to anyone. I would pay them about $2-3 for every card they retrieved for me. I successfully had a gang of goons who would steal for me, which then I sold the cards again. I felt like the 8th grade kingpin. TLDR. Sold trading cards. Had kids steal them back for me. I paid them. And kept selling the stolen cards. Over and over again.